Well, happy Halloween, ghouls and goblins, and thanks so much for listening to another episode of Camp Cryptid. I am your host, Erica Fett, and today is a magical day for everyone. And here at Camp Cryptid, we celebrate the spooky and the macabre, ghost stories and urban legends, and all the glorious things about the witching season. Y'all absolutely rock for checking out my last episode all about the cryptids, urban legends, and ghost stories and hauntings of New York and my New York Comic-Con recap. But today's episode is a Halloween episode, and it was picked out by my amazing patrons on Patreon. And today we are going to chat all about the folklore of Appalachia. Now, for those of you not from the United States or those of you not familiar with the Appalachian region, well, to sum it up, it's enormous. It is a set of mountains in a region that span across 15 states. And the region itself is massive. It's over 250,000 square miles all along the East Coast. Now, I spent most of my childhood growing up in Alabama, and I moved back to Ohio when I was a teen. But trips to Georgia and West Virginia and Tennessee and Virginia were something I've done all my life. However, even with living outside of Appalachia and traveling through Appalachia a lot, I've never really experienced anything on my own that was anything out of the normal. Now, I have heard a few scary noises while I was camping out in Tennessee, but to me, there was nothing that could be anything other than something that could be explained by wilderness or animals out in the wilderness. But there's one thing I do know for sure, and that I sure do miss some boiled peanuts like every single day of my life. But the Appalachian region is absolutely stunning and breathtaking. It's gorgeous. It's full of rolling hills and cliffs, mountains, labyrinths of cave systems, dense forest, amazing hiking trails, and some absolutely chilling folklore, cryptids, and stories that go along with it. Now, between mysterious lights in the mountains, witches terrorizing families, cryptids raining from the skies, this vast region of Appalachia is not only full of spooky little tidbits, it's full of mystery as well. And one of those tidbits, that's one of my absolute favorite stories that happens in the Appalachian region, is a phenomenon called the Brown Mountain Lights. And these happen in North Carolina, and it's basically on and around a mountain called Brown Mountain. Now, this mountain became known nationwide for these Brown Mountain lights. And these lights were a series of ghost lights that were seen in the sky that could be seen up to like 60 to 70 miles away around this actual Brown Mountain. And these lights were seen by so many people over the decades. Now, witnesses of the lights say that they usually look like balls of flames, but different colors sometimes, and that sometimes these balls of light, these Brown Mountain lights, pulsate, or they'll have almost like a flame trail coming from them. Now, these lights were so popular that even an X-Files episode from season 6 called Field Trip featured the Brown Mountain lights and the stories about them. So these mysterious lights have been documented since the early 1900s, and some people even say they've been seen since as early as before the 1700s. Now, when it comes to explanations, many geologists have actually tried to use different theories to explain these lights or what's causing them. And some of those theories are that this area is just prone to different light reflections, whether it's that or atmospheric conditions or something as easy as an explanation of that it's car headlights. There's so many explanations that people have tried to give over the years. But there's no doubt that no matter how complex or simple or even out of this world that the explanation may be, those that have seen these lights are still left in awe and wonder. So, next time you're on a trip to North Carolina or around the region, head over to Brown Mountain and take in those breathtaking views and try your luck at seeing those mysterious Brown Mountain lights. Or you can head over to the Brown Mountain Lights Festival that usually happens in October in that area. And you can enjoy the local community, check out some amazing local vendors, some local food, some artists, and you can bond over those spooky and mysterious Brown Mountain Lights. Now, there are so many cryptids in the region of Appalachia and so many stories of otherworldly beings, whether it's cryptids or witches. But the Bell Witch is actually one that I've discussed in a previous episode. And this is basically, to summarize, it's all about a story of a family that was terrorized in Tennessee from what they believe was the Bell Witch. Now, this one is a weird one because it started out where this family of the children of the family started hearing noises that sounded like almost like a rat scratching at the floorboards. But as time went on, these incidents became more violent and terrifying for the family. And so it left not only the family absolutely terrified, but the community was absolutely terrified as well. So this was a crazy, crazy story, and I highly recommend, if you're not familiar with the Bell Witch, definitely either A, check out my episode, or go check it out. Go read more stuff about it. There's tons of movies about it. There's actually still a cave you can go visit, and you can also go visit the marker where the Bell residence used to be. Even though the house is not standing anymore, that doesn't stop people still to this day that are having experiences with this Bell Witch haunting. So even today, the echoes of the Bell Witch still exist. But like I said, when it comes to the cryptids of Appalachia, I mean, we're talking over 15 states that have stories. So you have a ton of Bigfoot sightings along this entire region. You've got a ton of river cryptids and monsters from the sea. You've got tons of cryptids in this area, but two probably of the most well-known cryptids are two of my absolute favorites, which are Mothman and the Flatwoods Monster. Now, these are two of my absolute favorite cryptids. I attended the Mothman Festival this past September, and the Flatwoods Monster is absolutely one of my favorite cryptids in the entire world. But these two cryptids are also cryptids of Appalachia out of West Virginia. And I've done episodes on both, and I will continue to love them both forever. But this is another instance. If you have not heard of the Flatwoods Monster, it is a really crazy story. And if you like cryptids, but also mixed with a little bit of extraterrestrial goodness, definitely check out the story of the Flatwoods Monster. It is so gnarly, and it is one of my absolute favorites. But those two cryptids are amazing, and highly recommend you check out either my episode or do a little bit of digging on your own, and maybe you can have some explanations for these crazy cryptids. Now, another little cryptid that's up in Maryland is the Snallygaster, and this little winged cryptid that resembles a flying reptile almost is absolutely stuff of nightmares. It is basically said to live and breed out of the caves in the mountains, and when it gets a hold of its prey, it sucks the blood from them. So that one is a really, really scary, scary cryptid. Now, there's also the knot deer, and if you haven't heard of this one, this is one I actually started to hear about recently, and I'd never really heard of it before this, but the knot deer is supposedly a creature that when you see it, it kind of looks like a deer, but as you take closer looks, there's just something off about it. It has different proportions, it just looks off, it just looks very weird and strange. So a lot of people who have come into contact with the knot deer say it's very unsettling. So that is one that is also seen in the forest of Appalachia. But as I said earlier, the Appalachian region is so vast, and with stories and legends that are passed down from people over the years and that span across over 10 states, there's bound to be a little bit of creepy mixed in. Now, one of the craziest stories I would say about Appalachia and what's associated with Appalachia is that there's cannibals and feral people living in the mountains there, right? Now, you may think that The Hills Have Eyes or Wrong Turn are just horrifying movies to make you terrified of going to any small town that's off the grid. But I would like to say, a disclaimer, just like every other forested area around the United States, there are legends of feral people or even cannibals living off the grid in the mountains of Appalachia. There are stories like the Cannibal Clan, like the Boone County Cannibal Clan, and those help fuel those legends. But there are a ton of stories of people living off the grid pretty much in every forest in the United States. And everywhere else too, because we hear about all these stories about in jungles and forests. Yeah, I think that like living off the grid and there being cannibals living there is something that's pretty associated with like every heavily forested area at this point. But the bad thing is that some people associate feral people with the disappearances that happen while people are hiking. Now, however, I've stressed this many times in prior episodes that the forest and the wilderness can be very harsh and unforgiving. So erratic weather, the elements, they can cause people to become disoriented and lose their way. And while it's definitely spooky and Halloween-like to like tell stories of cannibals, the reality is that the wilderness is and can be very harsh, even to experienced hikers. So please, always travel safe while you're in the wilderness. Now, I'm not saying that there could not be one-off instances of cannibals or feral people living off the grid in these mountains, or even existing in these mountains. But I mean, look at stories of the Ohio grassman. While some people think it's a Bigfoot, there's other people who think that these are actually just instances of people, actual humans living off the grid. But of course, it's just way spookier to talk about cannibals living off the grid in these mountains, or hearing voices calling people's names, or clans of cannibals abducting hikers. But truly, when it comes to the region of Appalachia, one of the scariest things about it is that the wilderness is absolutely unforgiving and nature can be very harsh. Between animal attacks, freezing temperatures at night, or disorientation when people are lost, even hypothermia or dehydration, nature can be absolutely beautiful, but it can also be absolutely terrifying. And one of the things I'd like to also drop in this episode, if you have not, heard of it, is Missing 411, which is definitely something I would say to check out if you get a chance. And it's basically stories of people that are in the wilderness or parks that go missing. And some of it is very truly unsettling. When it comes to the region of Appalachia, it is definitely full of a lot of stories, some weird instances like the Brown Mountain Lights, lots and lots and lots of cryptids when it comes down to it. But overall, I think it's a pretty awesome, beautiful region that deserves, you to go visit the hiking trails, go do some camping. There's lots of places in Tennessee where you can rent a cute little cabin out in the woods and just really get in touch with nature. But truly, when it comes down to it, Appalachia is a huge region. Like I said, it spans over 10, 15 states, and the mountains are vast and incredible and beautiful. And yeah, there are tons and tons of cave systems. I think Tennessee has some of the most extensive cave systems in the United States. So there are a lot of creepy little tidbits that make this region very mysterious and wonderful. But like I said, even though there's lots of stories and cryptids associated with the Appalachian region, definitely go visit some of these areas. Go enjoy the spooky little tidbits like the Bell Witch Cave or the Brown Mountain Lights Festival or the Mothman Festival. There are a ton of museums that you can go visit that a lot of communities just really celebrate. And that's what we're here for at Camp Cryptid. We want to get people to go celebrate the legends and folklore of communities and travel the United States or everywhere in the world, basically, and to really bond with each other over these little mysterious things that the earth gives us. So that's what this Halloween is about, right? We're going to celebrate the spooky cryptids. We're going to celebrate getting you some good food in those bellies and really going to these communities and celebrating their festivals with them. Now, I had to make a cute little movie list, obviously, for Halloween. So with that being said, I wanted to add the Blair Witch Project on this first and foremost, because one, even though it's set in Maryland, it has some ties to the Bell Witch. So I think that one is fun. And that one will always remain one of my absolute favorite horror movies, because I was in 7th grade when that came out and I went to see it in theaters. And there is no other experience that has made me so scared in my life other than watching their Blair Witch in its prime when there was all this hysteria. Everyone was wondering, is it true? Like, did this happen? And then me being a spooky kid, like loving it because I'm like, this is like crazy awesome. So the Blair Witch is like hands down top on my list. Now, obviously I said stuff about The Hills Have Eyes and Wrong Turn, and I actually think I watched Wrong Turn not too long ago with my husband. They're crazy movies and they're spooky, and obviously they're cannibals, and that's terrifying. Another one I wanted to add, because this movie is so good and I've watched this movie like 15 times, is The Descent. And that actually happens in a cave system in Tennessee. And the good thing about that one is it's not cannibals. It's like mutated, like creepy, well, spoiler, but it's been out for like 20 years. Okay. But it's like mutated, creepy little goblins. And I just, that movie is so good. I even love the follow-up to A Descent too. Those movies are just so good. I've literally seen them like 45 times. Now, other than The Descent, I would say Mothman Prophecies. If you haven't seen, the Mothman movie with Richard Gere and Laura Linney, that's one you have to watch, especially when it comes to Mothman, right? But I wanted to also add Tucker and Dale versus Evil. I think that one, I love comedic horror. Like, that's probably, even though I love horror like as a whole, I think comedic horror is like one of my favorites. When it's executed right, it just hits right. Like Deadstream. I don't know if I've said it before in other episodes, but Deadstream on Shudder was so funny. It was so good. I love when comedy and horror mix. It's just, it's so good. Pumpkinhead apparently takes place in Tennessee, I think. So that one would be a good one to kind of piggyback with this episode. And it's a classic, right? The Evil Dead, I think also takes place in Tennessee. So that's another one to add to your list if you want some Appalachian really like goodness. And while I don't think it counts as the Appalachian region, I'm going to throw in Children of the Corn, because even though that's like more of a Midwest vibe, that movie is terrifying, like absolutely. So that's what I'm going to say. I think those are my recommendations to piggyback off of this episode. And I could be missing a lot, because I think there's a lot of movies that go back to this. But also, I'd like to say, don't forget about the X-Files episode from season 6 called Field Trip. That is about the Brown Mountain Lights. So if you need like some fun little tidbits all about the Appalachian region that kind of take in all of this folklore and these stories, that would be my list. And like I said, I'm probably forgetting a million of them. But if I am forgetting them, make sure to leave a comment and let me know so we can add them to our little region list. But yeah, that's 2 episodes this week, y'all. Wow. I really wanted to do a Halloween episode, and since my patrons picked out this topic, I thought it was fun. With that being said, though, I will be having my patrons go through and leave comments on what theme they'd like to see for November. So make sure to go join my Patreon for free. And all members basically get to put in their input for future themes and episodes they'd like to see. And then I have patrons go and vote. So I'll be doing that very shortly, probably in the next couple days, having the new list for November coming out. But yeah, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I probably need to do a part 2 follow-up, because there's a lot of stuff I didn't touch on today. So yeah, I hope wherever you are, you're having an amazing Halloween so far and celebrating the spooky. And I'm really, really excited that I get to go through and read about these topics with you all. So it's really, really great. It's really, really fun. But yeah, I hope you all have the most amazing Halloween. And thank you again for listening to another episode. And if you're liking what you're hearing, make sure to go leave me a review on Apple or Spotify, or, go subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm trying to do a little bit more video content lately, so hopefully you all enjoy that. But yeah, with that being said, happy Halloween, everybody. You guys are the best campers in the world. I hope you have the most amazing, safe, and spooky Halloween. And like I said, eat all that good candy, eat some good food, and until next time, take care.